Alright, this looks to be working. Kia ora everyone. My name is Willie Oles and I'm the Director of FreeUp Chartered Accountants for Non-Profits. So one of the things I've been wanting to do is produce more content that has a broader scope. It can reach more people, might be helpful for more people. My business is a accounting practice and we have paid clients, but sometimes people have little questions or they want to know something but they just don't know where to look or where to find the answers for it. So that's kind of what I thought I'd start this for. So yeah, I've got a few notes down here at the moment. So in terms of goals and structure, I think that's why I want these videos to be sort of educational and a good resource for people to come and view and look at. So if you're in the not-for-profit sector space, hopefully a lot of this information is going to be really relevant to you and really helpful. And that's why you should care, that's why you should subscribe, that's why you should stay tuned to get those updates. So what will those updates be? I plan to, we'll take a look at current news, events, and other information that's out there. That'll be all very relevant to what's happening now and what's happening in the future, what might happen in the future. And apart from that, we'll cover a lot of the basics like FAQs, some how-tos, and even go through some examples of some of the stuff that I see in my client base, some of the issues they have. And what we'll be able to do is, so I use Xero quite a lot, and they have a demo company, so we'll even be able to jump in and see some real life examples on how to do things. So yeah, I guess two of the biggest resources that I'll be using for this is like the Charity Services website. They produce a lot of good information on what's happening in the industry, as well as there's a few Xero groups and forums that I belong to. So there are other sources as well, that I can think of, like we've also got all our news media. Channel 3, Channel 1 and 3 of the news. We've got stuff at the Herald, newspapers. And then other government agencies. So there's not just the Charity Services, which is a government agency or falls under one, the Department of Internal Affairs. But there's other things like looking at business.gov.nz, that falls under MB, but they do produce a lot of information as well, and they are responsible for managing like the Incorporated Societies Register, as well as a bunch of other things. So I think there's lots of good information out there, and sometimes it's really hard to find the answers that we might need. So yeah, some of those websites. There's like Company's Office. Just make a note of these so we can all see them. Come back to them if we want. IRD is another good one. So Inland Revenue Department is sometimes relevant as well. And I feel like there was something else I said and I've already forgotten. This is why I should write things down. Here we've got TV1, TV3, stuff, Herald, etc. There's a lot more than that, but yeah, I can't remember. I swear I said a third one, but that's right. So yeah, that is So yeah, that's our plan. Pretty much to go through this sort of format, and along the way I'll be able to take notes, diagrams, pictures using Xero as well. So yeah, I guess some of the tools that we'll use Xero demo companies. We also use this is called Excalidraw, if you wanted to know. It's a add-on for Obsidian, which is a note taker. So these are a couple of the tools that we'll be able to use to sort of deliver this information. So I thought the first thing we'll jump into is we'll have a bit of a quick look at Charity Services newsletter here. So again, the Charity Services has quite a lot on their website actually. They've got hot topics, events, newsletters. There's a lot on here that they're always publishing every single month. This is their newsletter for October, so last month gone. We're now in November, and yeah, they're quite useful to always stay up to date with what's happening in the industry. So we've got a message from Charlotte. It's nice to read, but for today we're just going to skip over it. There's an annual meeting coming up. So there's a Dunedin community session and a reminder to keep your charity details up to date. Is your charity an incorporated society? Yeah, so this is a big change. I'm sure most people are aware of the underlying change that's happening at the moment. If you're not, we'll just go over it quickly, but was it 20? I can't remember the year that they actually passed the bill, but it came into effect last year, but then you've got 2 years to adopt it, so it really doesn't come into full effect until is it 1 January 2025? I can't quite remember. But what they did is they reworked the rules. They actually updated the law, the act, for what is an incorporated society. So yeah, Incorporated Society Act 2022. So the whole reason behind why they did this, so we've got here is we've got the New Incorporated Societies Act 2022. So the whole reason for them doing this actually was quite important. It was a good opportunity for the government at the time to sort of take a lot of old pre-existing laws and acts that went back 100 odd years or so, and it was a really good opportunity to take a look at consolidating the law around trust boards and incorporated societies. So Yeah, so one of the big major changes coming out of this act was that it did require all incorporated societies, we just call them societies, all societies, to re-register under the new rules. And if I remember correctly, the reason for this was the old law was not very modern, not up with the times, and because of that, there were, I guess, areas of the law which the government considered could be improved upon. These were things like dispute resolutions. There was the main one. I think there might have been some things in there around, I cannot remember off the top of my head now. I think might have been around asset distributions, when ceased to exist. Can't remember. A lot of the points were sort of minor in detail at the end of the day, because from what I remember, I've had many conversations with my clients from this, and the biggest point I made to them, a lot of them had concerns that this was going to fundamentally alter or change the way they operated or could operate. And I would kind of have the conversation with them, and I was like, well, how do you if someone brings up a problem, how do you deal with it? And I think, what I found 10 times out of 10 is that, almost always clients or societies were operating in a way that already fit within the new rules. So what I mean by that is, the new rules prescribed that they needed to have a dispute resolution. Well, they actually kind of already had one, whether it was formal or informal, and it was just about actually formalising that in their trust deed. So it was more like an admin exercise than anything, as far as I could see it. But it did require everyone to re-register under the new rules, and basically if you didn't re-register, you were going to cease to be a legal entity in 2025 or 26, something like that. But if you did re-register, you would have to be under the new rules and have a new trust deed and operate like that. Part of that as well was also, we used to have things called charitable trust board societies, something like that. Can't remember exactly what it was, but it was kind of confusing when you used to look at, I guess, the not-for-profit space in New Zealand, because you used to have things, you'd have a number of different legal types, and there was a little bit of confusion about which one should you be and what were the differences. So you could have things like a charitable trust, which is like a trust here in New Zealand, a set one with a charitable purpose. But even if you're registered as a charitable trust, under the register for charitable trust, you still had to register with charity services, which is different. There's always a little bit of confusion there. You could be an incorporated society, and this would make sense more for things that are like your sports clubs. And then you could have a charitable trust board, incorporated society, which, to be honest, I can never remember what is the big difference between these two? I know there is a difference, but for the most part, most people I've dealt with were just incorporated societies, not a charitable trust board incorporated society, or whatever it was. Where this one's kind of like a hybrid of the two. They're a charitable trust board. Okay, you've got a trust board running an incorporated society. Whereas in a normal incorporated society, they might have a committee or board or something, but they're owned by the members as opposed to run by a charitable. I don't even really know. I guess that's where part of the confusion came in. So basically, they gave a big cross to this. It disappeared, and then you had to re-register as an incorporated society under the new 2022 rules. And what that meant is, it's kind of a funny thing. A lot of people who are charitable trusts got a little bit confused at the time whether they did or did not have to do anything. No, they didn't. And if you were an incorporated society, you had choices, I guess, to make. You could stay a society. You could look at changing to a charitable trust or becoming a company or just not being registered at all. So most of the work was down here in the incorporated society part of the sector, figuring out really what they need to do. So I've sat down with a few clients there, and to be honest, we sort of go through a process of, just identifying their structure. What is it that they do? Why do they do it? Who do they do it for? What benefits do they deliver? These, or maybe any other key partnerships. Asking these really high level questions is the starting point to determine what sort of structure you should be to start off with. Because a charitable trust is maybe, could be as little as 2 or 3 people who have an idea and they want to form a trust with a charitable purpose. Whereas in a incorporated society, under the rules, you had to have, can't remember if it was at least, that was one of the rules they changed. You used to have 15 members. What's that done there? You used to have 15 members to 10. I want you to go away. Thank you. So that was one of the other things they changed. Changed minimum number of members from 15 to 10, and they required a registration process. This one was actually quite a big deal and quite a big work on for many people. And it's not that they necessarily didn't have that. Again, like I said, it was most of the time it was codifying what they were already doing. If you're a sports club, normally you've got players playing in your teams every single year, so it's about just getting them to sign, a registration paper if they didn't already, to say, yep, I'm playing for this club. Boom, there's your membership, there's your registration. You're now a member, and this incorporated society is run for the members. So it was basically a bit of a process of identifying which changes were relevant and then just updating their trust deeds. So we've done a bit of work of that early on. There were a few people who jumped early on the boat. I feel like there's been a bit of a there was, when that was first announced back in 22, 21, there was a lot of high interest. Right now we're in the end of 2024. It's in the voluntary or the leeway period now. I think people had between 2023 to 2026 it might have been. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 years to change over, so we're kind of in the middle of that process. I expect again, as we start to near the end, we're going to see a lot more interest in this incorporated society space, with people realizing, oh my god, I need to do something, or I'm going to get deregistered, and then we're not going to be able to get funding or continue doing what we need to be doing. So this one's probably a good topic that we're going to dive into in more detail in the future. So yeah, that's basically what this is. Like you can see, it's just a little bit of a note. There's not much to it, but yeah, is your charity, is it an incorporated society? You might need to re-register with the company's office. So you're going to see these little notes all along the way, and it'll ramp up as we get closer to the date. Yeah, something to look out for. Oh, here we go. So if my explanation wasn't good enough for you and you want the meat and potatoes, looks like they are running seminars. This one was for Friday the 18th of October, so it's already gone and passed, but I know they're continuously doing these. I did one maybe a year and a half ago now. That's why everything's not so fresh in my brain. It's like it's sort of there, but yeah, again, where they go over the re-registration process. There's been an update to reporting standards as well, that come into effect from, I believe they come into effect from 1 April this year, so anyone with a 31 March 2025 balance date will have to report under the new standards, which are pretty similar. There's just some wording adjustments mainly. We'll go over that in the future. Any tax implications? I think questions and answers for anyone who wants to ask. So they definitely do these all the time. They're running them every probably 2 or 3 months, I feel like. We've got a report here on the state of the sector. I haven't actually read this one, I haven't seen this one. Sometimes I'll go on, that's another good website to use is, quite often go on stats.gov.nz. They collect so much information. They're a really good website for all sorts of things. Like I've done market research, pulling off survey information from their election survey. You know it, they've got it. But here, what do we got here? 2024, the sector report. He Uiui Te Tonga o Te Ratonga was launched on Wednesday, 2 October by Community Networks Aotearoa. Snapshot of the community volunteer sector. Let's take a look at this. I will take a look at the executive summary. Just see if we can blow this up. So, yeah, a new sector survey, capturing data and stories from the community, iwi and volunteer sector. Oh, this looks really good. I didn't hear about this coming out, but this looks really, really good. It's post COVID-19, so I'm sure there's some tough lessons in the last couple of years. I certainly know that's definitely true in my client base at the moment. Yeah, just not enough money, too much work, always feeling stretched. I just feel like this is always true. the way I like to say it to people was, I say there's three key problems in the not-for-profit sector. The first one's money. We all know the first one's money. There's never enough money. And the second one is time. So, they say too much work here. Just not enough time to get it all done. And the third one for me is expertise or resource, like appropriate resource. So even if you've got the money and the time, you don't necessarily have the expertise that you need. So quite often with a lot of my clients, that's financial or accounting expertise, and that's where I come in, trying to plug that hole there, as well as helping them with money and cost, as well as freeing up their time. So that's my whole philosophy, and it's just based off what I see as the three core issues that all not-for-profits, right from national bodies through to communities, face. And again, you just, no matter whose words it's in, you're seeing the same sort of rhetoric, the same sort of things that impact everyone. So the iwi community and volunteer sector organisations, they've not bounced back from the shock of COVID, because I guess we've had cost of living crisis since then. Might be in the same position financially as they were 2 years ago. Others are worse off, few are better off. I haven't seen many people that are doing better. More are using reserves. Yep, I've seen that. And it's just saying there's ongoing dynamic tough times ahead. Not take much for us to tip from okay to worse. And I don't really agree with this. I certainly don't think it's going to be exceptional over the next year, because obviously things take a while to flow through. People set budgets now for this year, next year, or the year after. So even when people are setting budgets next year, they still might not be setting bigger budgets in terms of like the funders giving out more funding. They do what they can, but we'll see. Next year hopefully should be sort of a stabilisation, I think, in my opinion, and then maybe the year after that we'll see some positivity coming back into the sector. But I don't really think it's going to get that much worse. I just don't think it's going to get better, not for a couple of years. So costs are rising, and for the most part that's already hit. So if the costs aren't going to rise too much more in the future, they're kind of already hit. So see, like, as I see, less income for organisations. They're saying reduce memberships. Maybe, I think memberships are still pretty strong. Less donations is definitely true. I'm definitely seeing it in more of the sponsors, grants and donations. Membership normally makes up a very small percentage of income in the client base that I look at. It used to be a key moneymaker in clubs and societies and charities or whatever, 30, 40 years ago. But the commercial industry has grown a lot more these days, where there's a lot more grant providers, there's a lot more sponsorship opportunities, social media rights and income and monetization. So I actually think membership's not very important anymore. I kind of push my clients away from worrying about membership. I get them to focus on delivering value for membership. So if you're going to charge people to be a member, what's the value delivering? It's not just you're a member, sign up, pay your fees. If you're doing that, I tell them to just scrap their membership, because you're not delivering value. How can you ask for money from people? You got to do more than just say it's enough to be a member, pay us some money. And that's because I think that you can just get so much more funding elsewhere. But donations are down, lotteries are down, although I think they will stay. They're one of those vice industries. So the income side of them will take a hit, but they tend to do, how do you say it, less bad. They tend to do less bad in tough times because it's like advice, it's a gamble, it's something that a lot of people are always interested in doing, especially when times are tough, because it's a little bit of excitement, a little bit of freedom. I think what actually impacts the lotteries a lot more is that their operational costs. So even if their top line revenue does come down, they are quite bloated. I mean, they collect money, they pay themselves a big paycheck, and then from the profits, that's what they distribute to the community. So sometimes their profits is what takes a hit because their core costs are pretty stable, and if their income comes down, it doesn't necessarily mean that their salaries go down. But anyway, we're seeing a mention here of it's difficult to retain skilled staff. People are looking for higher paid jobs, and this is what I said about, everyone suffers from lack of experience. Pressure on wages and increasing costs for basics that are not covered by grants and contracts. And I think that's a good point. I think over the last 10, 15 years, there definitely has been a lot more tightening around what you can actually spend your grant and contracts on, which does make it tough. It might be easy for an organisation to be able to target 80% of their costs and get funding for it, but that last 20%, and it might be crucial for them to spend that last 20%, but it can be sometimes hard, whether it's somebody's wages or directors' fees or accountancy and lawyers' fees. Maybe they want to do some advertising and marketing. It's these sort of business-esque commercial or operational costs, or administrational costs, I don't know what you call it, but it just falls outside of like the core service delivery. They're kind of like overheads, and sometimes those are a lot harder to get funded, the overheads, than the actual operational costs. And let's be real, you can't deliver the operations without overheads. So in my opinion, I think we need more funding for overheads. People don't like funding, it's not as sexy. Like, you can't put a nice poster up on your website saying, look, we funded the overheads of all these companies. They don't want that. They want to show community benefits. So it's a hard to sell, but I think it's just, it's a cost. It has to be paid for one way or another. So has the cost of living caused financial stress? So 63% say yes. And so there's 2 out of 3 organisations. Like that's massive just in terms of the survey. We don't even need to get into whether it's true or not. This is how people feel. They feel really tight in the industry. And I know from my clients, like, who hasn't, is the way I would put it. I can think a couple of my clients that haven't been affected, and they're quite unique in what they do. It'll be quite hard to measure how much there was an effect, up, down, or neither. But I'd say a large percentage, maybe more than this, of my clients have been impacted by, I guess, I don't know if you call it cost of living actually, but just budget constraints. Sports clubs, interest groups, bring people together at the same time. Volunteers, including governance. Most governance are volunteers. And they're all starting to come back after COVID. That's good. I'd say this is a big one. There's been and it hasn't always been massive government cuts. There there, of course, has been massive budget cuts from the government. In some areas, there are not as many contracts going out. In other areas, it's just uncertainty, which has resulted in a lot of, I guess you'd call it a funding freeze. And that has the same knock-on effect. So a lot of central and local governments, so I'm in the Auckland region, and we've got, Waitak, South, I'm in central Auckland, and then, it's not far from Northland where I've got some clients in the Waikato region. They're all finding, the ones that I have that deal with government entities and the government contracts, it is just that little bit harder to get that over the line, or maybe it's not as much money as last time. There might be 5-10% less, but they've got the same need, if not a greater need, because they're, as an organisation, they're trying to grow. They're not non-profit, but they're getting less funding. And this lines up with what I'm saying. Over delivering by 26% or more. They're just doing a hell of a lot more growing year on year, but the contracts have stayed the same or have reduced. And it's not even like big reductions, but it's like do more with the same or less. This is a tough one. So organisations have still managed to raise wages and salaries and providing professional development, but I know from my time in the industry, as well as seeing others, I don't know, would you say it's grossly underpaid? What is grossly underpaid? I think it's kind of like the elephant in the room. No one really talks about it. People are there for a good reason. They get a paycheck, but some of the work these people put in is exceptionally high, and they're just not rewarded for it. Eventually that leads to people burning out or leaving. So sometimes it's not even like, you might look at the wages and you're like, it's average, or it's only 5% off the industry average for an accountant or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, well, is this an average job? I mean, they might be going over and above, or they might be bringing a high level skill set just for that average pay. So really the pay is below average for that individual, or for what that organisation needs. I see wages and salaries as a massive problem, as a problem that the sector needs to fix. It's that experience and knowledge. They need people with this, and there's not much of an attraction to the industry, because in a lot of roles it's just not competitive. Like, it's okay, you will find people. There's a lot of people who do it for free as well. There's kind of this expectation that because it's the not-for-profit or charity sector that you make do. And that's just not sustainable. I mean, it's just not. So I think people in the industry need to be working harder on fixing that problem. Just because it's not at a crisis point yet doesn't mean it won't be. And this is just measuring back on people report back on their contracts or the grants, and this is showing that there's a lot of them who over deliver quite significantly. This is an interesting statistic. Just a quarter of organisations feel they cannot speak publicly about what they and their clients are experiencing. It's an improvement from 10 years ago when it was 60%. It's interesting. 2014 was an interesting time. We'd gotten over the GFC, and things were definitely, it was the start of some good times or some better times. And a lot of people felt like they could not speak out about that, maybe because of a lot of support during the tough times, or maybe they felt, well, times were good, we can't really speak out about the problems, I don't know. But right now, times are definitely tough, and it's only a quarter or just under a quarter of people don't feel like they can speak there. Yeah, and I'll even go as far to say that we've seen this play out in the media in the last month. No matter what you think about Mike King and is it the Gumboot charity, whatever he runs. I think there was, I think it was a bit of a snap reaction. This government kind of pledged to him after the last government kind of, it was during COVID, and they just didn't want to. It's not they didn't want to. I don't think they handled his situation. So during COVID, he wanted more funding for mental health. A lot of people did, a lot of different organisations, and he runs one that's in this space. And he was trying to publicly raise awareness, and the government just didn't want to play the game with him. I think they handled that poorly. Not necessarily saying their decision was poor, but they just optically, they didn't handle it very well, and I think it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, because it was kind of saying, like they were saying, the government at the time was saying, be kind, take care of each other, but then at the same time, I think there were cuts to mental health funding, and then quite publicly, a large organisation run by Mike King, they were publicly saying, no, we're not giving you any money. So I think optically that looked really, really bad. And I think we saw a bit of a snap reaction when this government got in. Obviously, Mike King made friends, and they actually committed to that. They were saying, last government didn't do well on mental health, we're going to do better. And they kind of used this, you could argue, they used that opportunity to make it look good. And where I was going with this is that that in itself has been then by its very nature, it's become a little bit political. So when people are saying there's feeling compromised about speaking out about not enough money and doing hard work, I mean, you've got one of the most famous comedians here in New Zealand who runs a mental health organisation, who is asking for more money and who is perceivedly treated poorly by one government, and then it looks like he almost gets overly favourable treatment, but then there's a few other media stories and questioning whether he should have any funding, and people calling for his funding to be pulled. Not saying if any of this is right or wrong, but all to say that this definitely weighs in on other people's minds, other people who have genuine problems, who are just too worried to speak out. So I definitely can see where this sentiment comes from. Yeah, resilient and innovative in the face of complex pressures. You kind of have to be. I think that's a great little executive summary, hitting on some good key points. I think some of them, we guessed beforehand coming in and looking at this. I think that's pretty good insight, some very interesting points brought up here. It's good to know as well where everyone else is at, so you'll know how you feel within your organisation, but it's also good to know how other people feel, so you can kind of, if you're feeling stressed or under pressure, now maybe you want to go read this report, or you can see what others are saying about it, and where they're at. And might give you a little bit of reassurance or guide or direction on what you can do, just to know that you're not the only one suffering. Might be all that you need. yeah, it was quite good. What's that called? The sector survey 2024. Last one was in 2014. It seems like every 10 years. So the key takeaways from this, again, like a funds, time, expertise. I think it's a given. What else was in there? Oh yeah. Fallout effects from COVID and cost of living. Organizations under pressure to deliver, to over-deliver services with the same or less funding. Oop. Okay. Did you know that charities are now required to review their governance every 3 years under the Charities Act? This makes having the right resources to guide you more important than ever. Hopefully we see some more good stuff coming in this space. Obviously to put in a requirement to review governance. And I think that would be quite tough for a lot of people to do right now. I think it's very easy. A lot of organizations at the moment, the split page, there we go. From what I've seen, a lot of organizations get very busy with just running their organization. That includes the board or the committee. It's very hard to run an organization when you're all volunteers. The people leading or governing often become the people managing or operating as well. So I think this is a good thing. At first, it looks like it could put a bit of pressure on the industry. Because now they've also got to do something that they didn't have to do before. But what I'm hoping is, they're not going to be left in the lurch here. As you can see, they're already starting to bring out tools to help people improve their governance. Now there are some out there already. There is free resources. I think Sport New Zealand actually produced some really good presentations, webinars, e-learns, whatever you call them, on governance. What you should be looking for, onboarding packs, what people need to do, be aware of responsibilities, what board structure should look like, all this sort of stuff. They've got awesome stuff there, but people just don't use it. So I actually think this is a bit of tough love, and I think that's a good thing. More organisations need to be upskilling. It is very tough to. I think a lot of people can understand and figure out how to operate a not-for-profit or charity. But when you've got to wear two hats, governing requires a totally different mindset, because you're not now worried about what the decisions will be and the effectiveness of them. You're higher level than that. You're thinking about, what are our core values? Keeping those, front of mind, front and center, and then applying that to, okay, what is it we do? What is our strategy? We're a sporting club. Are we here? Our values are maybe community, inclusion. Where are your values? Excellence and winning. Depending on what they are, that's going to look completely different in strategy. Because if you want to win, your strategy is going to be, how do you recruit top players and win? What's like a winning culture look like? Those sort of things. Whereas if it's more about inclusion and community and family, it's like, how do you make sure people are involved? How do you keep perhaps the kids out of juvie? Maybe you're holding social events. So governance is completely different. Operationally or management wise, that's the actual doing of the stuff. But when you're wearing both hats, it's very hard for people to separate the two, because you start talking about governance issues, but their brain goes straight across to what it looks like on a Saturday day down at the park. And sometimes you don't want to think about that, because it's not going to lead to a good governance outcome. That's very hard. So I think this is kind of a good thing, because it might force people to actually be pushed into learning a bit of governance, which I think is a good thing. I've seen many board meetings, and sometimes people just they don't even understand what the conversation's about sometimes, or what they should be focused on. And it's no fault of their own, but they're so used to doing and running the organisation, they're not used to thinking about guiding. And that's what governance is. It's about, I guess, providing leadership or direction for the organisation that other people can then come in and execute on. So yeah, this looks like really good news. I think I'm fully behind this. I didn't hear about it till now, which is great. That's what this is for. So I'll definitely be looking at this more in the future, what tools they bring out. Because if there's anything in here, my clients come to me with all sorts of problems all the time, and if there's anything in here that I can just drop to them and then they can take away, they can use this tool, and it's actually going to have an improvement on what they do, then that's the excellence. And that takes no effort. That takes 5 seconds of my time to be able to just provide that recommendation. Checkpoints along the way. This sounds really, really good. So like the first link here is this is a charity dedicated to supporting everyone in their journey. So I'm sure they'll have a lot of resources on here. This will be the place where this is where all the tools live. And on here they also got a bit of a timeline to be able to, I can see, evaluate your board. Look at the code, good governance code. Yes, we can see they got four principles here. Again, it's all about leadership, impactful, purposeful leadership. So what are your values? What's your purpose? Does it have impact? Like, what is it that you're doing? Connected leadership, obviously that one vision. working towards one purpose. Diverse and inclusive leadership, yet making sure that you've got a broad range of ideas and expertise in people. Integrity and accountability, because that's a big thing that can be quite scary to people, but I don't think you've got anything to worry about in integrity and accountability if you get the price stuff set up right, because at the end of the day, if you get your core processes and values and all that set up right, then all your decision making can be just look back to that. It's like, this is what we're doing right, this is our purpose, this is what we're trying to achieve, this is our goal. We're taking all our ideas and you're trying to execute on it. And at the end of the day, it doesn't always work. But the integrity part, as long as you're sticking to those goals, those values, those purposes, accountability comes easy. People are going to be quite nice to you. I feel like it's when people lack integrity or they avoid accountability, that's when you get into the problems, and that's when there's perhaps not clear leadership or clear purpose, values. Transparent and open leadership, I think that's that one's a balance. It's a tough one to strike sometimes between being, because you don't just want to put out all information to your club or society or charity. It's not like an open society or something where every member has to vote on every single thing for the organisation to be able to achieve anything. I mean, that's why you have a board, a committee, or trustees. These are people who you're given a certain amount of authority to be able to do things. But I think it links back to here, integrity and accountability, making sure that you report back, you're clear with what your goals were and what were the outcomes. And an effective governance process. I mean, I just feel like that's probably just going to wrap up everything together. That all makes sense to me. It sounds like really good stuff. So if you are an organisation that is thinking about upskilling in governance, or you've got some governance issues, this might be a really good place to start if you're looking for some free resources. Certainly something we're going to check out so that we can help apply to our client base. Research project. That's good. A lot of this stuff will help inform. You can see it's all linked. Cool. Updates from the IRD. So I did write it earlier. IRD, they do have a bit of an impact on charities and non-profits, even to the extent of it's just getting an exemption. That does matter. So new fact sheet. Business income, guidance of what constitutes business income, and when a charity's business income is taxable or tax exempt. That's good. They've obviously got new guidance on it. The rules haven't changed, so it's probably more around clarifying. But I'd like to dumb it down to a real simple, level. Pick a new colour, this colour. IRD tax exemption. What does that mean? Business income is income made with the intention of profits. Normally distributing profits. I mean, if you're not distributing profits, then it's not really a profit. At a real dumbed down level, that is what it is. So unless you're a really large charity, I suppose a small charity could do it, but normally all your time's taken up in running the charity. Almost all your income is going to be exempt. But there are instances where an organisation might be maybe is partially owned by a charity. So this organisation might have some income tax or like some profits that go off to a charity that might be taxed, or they might not. They might be able to be income exempt. There could be differences there, or it could be within an organisation itself. It might have different departments, and one is, running to make profits that somehow it distributes to its members, or something along those lines, which is most likely going to be looked at as a taxable activity, as opposed to something else that's along a service delivery line of feeding the homeless. They might be doing both these things at the same time, so some income might be exempt and some might not. Most organisations I come across aren't that complex. I'm sure they do exist, but it's good. Obviously there's more guidance put out by the IRD, so you can read this, and they normally have a bit of a excerpt on their understanding of the law, how it should be applied, and then some examples. Yeah, so for the most part, to have income exemption as well, you do need to apply to the IRD. So if you sign up as a charity with charity services, if you sign up on charity services, you should automatically get tax exemption. They should pass that on to the IRD with your IRD account, or you just got to prove that you're a registered charity, and the IRD will give you that exemption. If you are a incorporated society or company or something else with a charitable purpose, or company with charitable purpose, you will need to apply, and they will look at your company, your trust deed, or whatever it is, look at your rules to determine if you can get that income exemption. For most incorporated societies that are like clubs, sports clubs, amateur clubs, things like this, community clubs, you'll almost always get that exemption granted to you as well. And make sure to get withholding tax exemption as well. A lot of people forget that one, and then the bank just takes your money and pays it to the IRD, and it goes into a big black hole at the IRD on the interest you earn on your term deposits and stuff. So make sure to get that withholding tax exemption as well. I see a lot of charities missing that, and it's just money you're paying to the IRD for no reason. Deregistration from charity services. Yep, and yeah, this is just another reminder. Part of your obligations when winding up a charity, trust or otherwise, normally you have it in your rules to begin with. You might not if you've got a very old set of rules, but it normally has in there what you have to do to distribute your assets when you become deregistered. So under the law at the moment, if you don't want there to be tax on your assets when you're deregistered or when your organisation ceases to operate, they normally need to be donated to another charity in that industry. Can't be given to members or committee members or people like that. There'll normally be tax involved at that stage. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of rules on that sort of stuff. That's what we do. We help people with this sort of stuff. So yeah, kind of depends on what happens, but if you've got charity rules that are still legally binding under the law, so the rules are still relevant. You've got to, first things first, hopefully your rules line up with the law, and then B, you've got to follow your rules. Make sure that you distribute all those assets appropriately, and from that point you can decide, you can determine if there's any tax that needs to be paid or not. Yeah. Figure out your tax. Very important. Not to screw up. Because if you get rid of everything and the IAD comes asking for money, you might find as a board member or a trustee, you could be in trouble yourself personally for breaching your obligations, and that can have a whole raft of effects. Like if you also run businesses and all sorts, it can be a big black mark on you being able to register as a director or a trustee or something on other organisations. So it's very important not to screw that up if your charity or society is going through something like that. Do we need to file an income tax return? No, you're exempt. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah. I do see this from time to time. Actually, I do have a thing or two to say on this. Income tax returns. What was I going to say? I've seen a client or two with this when I get access. I might be taking care of their POA or GST, and it's something that we have to clean up with them. And normally it's a knock-on effect. It's there to begin with because at the time when they first registered with the IRD, they weren't able to get that exemption for a number of reasons, whether their constitutional company deed needed updated, or being able to initially get exemption. So it could be a number of reasons. Other things, what I'm seeing at the moment is I've got some organisations who are registering as a charitable trust in the charitable trust register, and then you've got to separately register under the Charity Services website, which manages charitable trusts. Sounds like a bit of a wind up, and it is a little bit. Why do you need to register twice? But either way you do, and the Charity Services are very, 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 very slow at the moment with registering charities. Extremely slow. They say it takes up to 10 weeks. I feel like I've got clients that are 15, 20 weeks, half a year, still not registered. It's just taking them so long. So you cannot apply for the exemption until you're registered with Charity Services. There's a lot of grant funding you can't get. This is having a massive impact at the moment. And I don't know what's causing it, but how slow Charity Services is processing at the moment. It's insane. So I know, like we were talking earlier about lack of funding and that. Well, some of this is caused by just bureaucracy, where they just can't get it processed and updated, so people can't apply for that funding. That's what I've seen in a couple of my clients, and they're on the phone like every week sending emails. Where is it? Where is it at? Oh, it hasn't got to yet. Oh, we're still looking at it. Oh, we need this and that updated. It's a right pain at the moment. The Charity Services and how slow they are. Incredibly slow. Like it it's awful. 10 weeks is pretty long in itself, and then they're not even close to hitting that. It's just incredibly slow. I don't know how else to put it. So that's putting people in positions where they've got the IRD knocking on them, asking them to do their returns and stuff as well, and people are like, well, God, I've had an application in for 6 months, haven't heard anything. So it's kind of worrying some people, and we have to work now, and we have to do extra work to work with charity services, try and get updates. Now we're having to work with the IRD because we just couldn't get that sorted up front. So it's just a whole lot of admin. Really annoying. Doesn't need to happen. But yeah, that looks like it's it for the day. Really good to go through the charity services newsletter for the month. I think there's some really good information in there. So obviously taking a lot of notes here today. I will save all these. Obviously you can watch the video as well and see it all. But it'll be good for me taking these notes so that I can refer back to them in the future as well, and we'll be able to sort of link it all up and see how things go. So yeah, hopefully you found some value in today's video. If you did, feel like hitting a subscribe, just to get more updates. If you're looking for any additional help, so if you're a charity or non-profit and you're looking for help with some of these areas or anything else really, I'm a director. We're at FreeUp Chartered Accountants for non-profits. You can find us up. Our website is FreeUp Limited, all one word, all spelt out. So it's freeuplimited.co.nz. That'll be in the description, and you can contact us there. We've got a phone number, email, contact on there. My name's Willie at freeuplimited.co.nz. Yeah, that's correct. So if you've got any issues or things that you want to talk to us, help with, you can always get in contact with me. Our whole purpose is to, like I said, those 3 core issues: help charities and non-profits with problems with funding, with money, funding with their time, getting things done for them that they don't have time to do, and also the expertise and knowledge that we bring. And it's all the little things that we do. That's why our whole business is focused on the not-for-profit sector. There's plenty of accountants out there that can do the same work we do, but they're not focused on what really matters. So we're looking at these things. How can we, give you little tidbits and advice, things that are relevant to you, that matter to you, that'll help you succeed. So yeah, that's a little bit about what we do.